Shocking transformation, how a black maid saved a billionaire's son from his darkest hour. In the heart of Charleston, a sprawling mansion gleamed under the early morning sun. It was the kind of place that whispered of wealth and power, but also of secrets. Inside, the air hummed with tension. Today, everything would change. The thick silence was shattered by the sudden scream of a young man. His voice echoed through the lavish halls, trembling with despair. There he was, James Carter, heir to an empire, his face twisted in agony, clutching at his head as if to hold it together. But who was there to hear his cries? Ella, the maid, bustling in with a basket of freshly laundered linens. She had heard the commotion and felt a chill crawl down her spine. James was always so perfect, a golden boy lost in a golden cage. Yet today, he looked like a shadow of himself, vulnerable, exposed. As Ella stepped into the room, she was hit by an overwhelming wave of grief, the weight of his suffering pulling at her heartstrings like a heavy anchor. James's piercing hazel eyes met hers, filled with raw pain. "I can't do this anymore, Ella. I'm drowning." Her pulse quickened, his anguish was palpable. Birds occasionally chirped outside, as if mocking the chaos inside, the world unbothered while James crumbled. But then, something remarkable happened. A shift in the atmosphere as Ella stepped forward, her own heart racing. "You're not alone, James. I'm here," she spoke softly, steadying her voice. Those words seemed to wrap around him, a lifeline in the ocean of despair. As if hearing the unspoken bond between them, a spark ignited in James's eyes. Could this black maid, often invisible in the grand scheme of his family's world, become his unexpected anchor? Questions flooded the moment. What would happen next? How could someone so ordinary challenge the very foundations of this opulent life? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air thickened as Ella reached for James's trembling hand, her strength almost mesmerizing. And at that moment, they both understood. This was their inflection point, an intersection of different worlds colliding. But what kind of future lay ahead? What secrets would be unveiled, or worse, what dark forces lurked in the shadows, waiting to tear them apart? As the sound of the ticking clock filled the room, so too did the sense of urgency. They were about to enter a labyrinth of emotions and choices that could change everything. Would love and resilience prevail against the odds? The moment hung in the air, fragile and electric. Ella felt the warmth of James's hand wrapped around hers, each heartbeat sending a jolt of reassurance. The vulnerability in his eyes sparked something deep within her, a fierce determination to help him navigate this darkness. But then doubt crept in, wrapping around her mind like ivy. Who was she to think she could lighten the burden he carried? The gap between their worlds loomed like a chasm, and the fear of that divide was almost suffocating. She drew a breath, steadying her resolve. "Tell me what is going on, James. I want to help you, I really do," she insisted, her voice trembling slightly but firm. His eyes darted away, as if searching for words, truths he's kept hidden too long. It's my family. They don't understand. They never have." His voice cracked, and for a moment, the aristocratic fortress he lived in felt more like a prison. "Everything is falling apart, and I can't keep pretending." Ella wanted to scream in agony, to tell him he didn't have to go through this alone. Her own life was a constant reminder of struggles, a maid working tirelessly to support her family just like countless others. But they both shared a common thread, one woven from pain and resilience. Suddenly, that thread felt like a powerful bond. "What if I told you that maybe you don't have to pretend anymore?" she whispered softly, her heart racing. James looked back, his eyes alight with renewed hope mixed with disbelief. "What are you saying?" Ella hesitated, searching for the right words. "Maybe I can help you break free from this and show you that life can be different. You have choices, James." He shook his head slowly. "It's not that easy. There are things I can't escape." With her other hand, she lifted his chin, her gaze steady and unyielding. "But you can. We can find a way together." Suddenly, the door creaked open, and both jumped apart like children caught in the act. Standing there was Margaret, the proud matriarch of the Carter family, her face drawn tight with a mixture of shock and fury. "What's happening in here?" she demanded, her eyes narrowing like a hawk's, ready to strike. James's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The weight of fear and obligation washed over his face. "Nothing, Mother." Ella was just helping. He swallowed hard, and Ella could see the confusion mixing with terror, the battle waging within him. "Helping? You don't need her help." Margaret's voice snapped through the room like a whip, the sheer force sending ripples of tension that seemed to trap James in a cage. "I'll not have some lowly maid filling your head with nonsense." Ella felt a mix of indignation and fear swirl inside her, fighting against the urge to simply slip away into the shadows where she always belonged. But at that moment, rage stirred deep within her. "I might be a maid, but I'm not invisible. James deserves more than what this gilded prison has to offer." Margaret's eyes widened with shock, disbelief splashed across her perfectly manicured features. "How dare you speak to me like that?" The silence that followed felt like an impending storm, charged with all the unsaid words. As James clenched his fists, a powerful question echoed in his mind. Could he break free from the expectations of his mother and the life laid before him? Or would he remain a prisoner, forever battling between the person he was and the person he could be? Tension sparked fiercely between the three of them, the stakes soaring. Ella sensed the shift in James, the decision hung in the air, almost tangible. Would he choose to remain shackled or take a daring step into the unknown? And as Margaret's icy gaze met Ella's fiery conviction, the weight of secrets began to press down even harder. What was hidden beneath her icy exterior? What else was at stake? The walls seemed to echo with the thunder of decision, a choice that could change everything. What lay ahead might reveal more than they ever anticipated. Would courage triumph over fear, or would silence again reign supreme in their lives? The clock ticked loudly, reminding them that time would not wait. Ella felt every heartbeat pulse through her as Margaret's cold gaze bore down on her. The air thickened with tension, heavy as a storm cloud ready to burst. James stood frozen, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, trapped between duty and a longing for freedom. "James!" Margaret's voice cut through the suffocating silence. "This is not the time to entertain fantasies. Your future is at stake." Ella's breath hitched in her throat. Those words landed like lead weights, anchoring James further into the depths of despair. "Future?" she echoed, each syllable a quiet rebellion against Margaret's oppressive authority. "You mean your idea of a future, right? What about James's choices?" Margaret's eyes flared, her perfect composure cracking like glass under pressure. "I will not have you speaking out of turn. You're nothing more than a distraction." James flinched at his mother's sharp words, the conflict evident in the tension of his shoulders. He seemed trapped in a cage made of family expectations and societal norms. Yet Ella's unwavering grip on his hand sparked something deep inside him, a flicker of defiance. "Enough." James's voice boomed, shocking them both. "I can't live like this anymore. You don't understand who I am or what I want." Margaret recoiled as if struck, her face contorting in disbelief. "What do you mean by that?" Ella felt hope surge but shied away from indulging it. This confrontation could crumble into chaos in an instant. "James, think about what you really want," she urged softly, her voice barely above a whisper. And that was the moment everything shifted. James's eyes burned with a mix of fear and determination, and he took a step forward, breaking the invisible shackles his mother had wrapped around him. No more pretending. I want to live, not just exist in your world. Margaret's mouth opened as though to respond, but no words came. Instead, she looked bewildered, her carefully crafted life suddenly threatened. James, listen, she began, her tone dropping to a pleading whisper. You don't know the consequences of this rebellion. It will ruin you. Ella steadied herself, feeling power radiate from James as if he was shedding his old skin. Or it will set me free. A chorus of gasps punctured the air like gunfire. Ella's heart raced as she realized that others had gathered outside the door, staff, onlookers, witnesses to this pivotal moment. Whispers snaked around the room like a wildfire, spreading disbelief and shock through the ranks of the household. Is he really going against his mother? Someone murmured, eyes wide in shock. What will happen now? Another voice wondered, laced with concern. Ella felt the weight of the audience press upon them, each breath a reminder of the stakes involved. This was bigger than just her and James, it was about breaking away from the oppressive chains of tradition and expectation. Your actions have consequences, James, Margaret hissed, her composure collapsing into something more raw and desperate. You'll regret this. And yet, despite the looming threat, James's resolve only hardened. Then let me regret my own choices, not the choices you made for me. With that declaration, he turned to Ella, his eyes searching for reassurance, an unspoken question lingering in the air. Was this the beginning of the end of his confinement, or merely a momentary act of rebellion that could lead to further tragedy? Suddenly, a distant crash echoed through the manor, shrouded by the tension in the room. It was jarring and cut through the moment like glass shattering. Eyes widened, panic surged through the audience. What was that? Ella whispered, dread coiling in her stomach. Stay here. James commanded, his authority returning with a vengeance, but Ella felt an equal blend of determination and fear. Outside, chaos erupted, a swirling storm of uncertainty heralding a drastic shift in their lives. In that instance, clarity dawned. The real fight was on the horizon, a confrontation not only with Margaret's suffocating grip but also with whatever dark shadows lurked beyond the walls of the Carter estate, and as they stood at this precipice of change, the question pulsed loudly in the air, what had they unleashed, and how would it shape their fates? The crashing noise echoed again, louder this time, rattling the very rafters of the manor. James's grip tightened around Ella's hand, their hearts racing as a wave of panic surged through the crowd that had gathered just beyond the door. Stay by my side. He urged her, eyes darting towards the door, uncertain but resolute. I need to protect you. But a voice rang out from the crowd, filled with urgency. What if it's them? What if they're here? Ella's stomach churned at the suggestion. Who? What are you talking about? Her pulse quickened. This wasn't just about family disputes anymore, something much darker and sinister loomed outside. James turned to face his mother, who was now pale, her bravado faltering amidst their audience. Ella could feel Margaret's tension, an icy fear that rippled through her as the reality of the situation bore down on them all. Whatever had just happened was about to unravel everything they thought they knew. Get everyone inside, Margaret demanded, her voice cutting like a knife. She was trying to regain control, but it was slipping through her fingers. We need to secure the house. No. James shot back, defiance surging once more. We can't hide anymore. This is the moment to confront whatever is out there. We deserve to know. James, think. You have no idea what we're dealing with. Margaret pressed, desperation creeping into her tone. You're endangering everyone. Ella sensed something behind Margaret's eyes, a flicker of knowledge of a hidden darkness, something unspoken that rumbled beneath the polished exterior of their lives. What secrets had she kept under wraps? It felt as if the walls were closing in the distance. Another crash echoed, followed by frantic whispers. A shadow moved outside, large and fearsome, lurking near the entrance. Eyes swiveled toward the door, breaths collectively held. Tension wound tighter than a noose. James, we can't fight ghosts, Ella said, struggling to keep her voice steady. What if it's really dangerous? We don't know what's out there. But James's jaw clenched, resolve hardening his features. Whatever it is has been haunting us for too long. If we don't face it now, it will never go away. As if on cue, the door suddenly burst open. A gust of cold wind followed the figure that stumbled in, a wild look in their eyes. It was Ben, the groundskeeper, panting as if he'd run a marathon. They're coming. We don't have much time. Panic erupted in the onlookers, screams mingling with the chaos. James stepped forward, his expression fierce and protective as he shielded Ella from the throng. Ben, what do you mean? Who's coming? What do we need to do? There's no time. We need to secure the back exits. They'll stop at nothing to get what they want. Ben's word sent a chill down Ella's spine. What do they want? James pressed, frustration tapering into dread. But before Ben could respond, there was another booming crash from outside, followed by the terrible sound of splintering wood. The crowd gasped as the enormity of the approaching threat loomed larger. Shadows danced against the walls, and a chilling wind swept into their sanctuary, a harbinger of the chaos that lay ahead. What do we do? Ella's voice trembled as she looked back at James, whose eyes burned with an intensity she hadn't seen before. We fight, he said, determination ringing in his words. We fight for our lives and for our freedom. As they braced for the onslaught, Ella couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something profound, caught between their past and an unknown future. The walls of the Carter estate, once a fortress of luxury, now felt like a trap, closing in around them. And as the sound of chaos mounted outside, they had to ask themselves, were they ready to face the truth that had been hiding in the shadows for so long? The answer hung heavy in the air, a question that wouldn't be answered until the storm finally broke. The wind howled like a banshee, sending a shiver through the crowd. James's face was set, a mask of determination that pushed aside any trace of fear. We need to gather whatever we can use as weapons. He shouted over the tumult of panicked voices. Wait. Ella grabbed his arm, her grip tighter than steel. Weapons? We don't even know what we're dealing with. But James pulled away, urgency fueling his every motion. Better to be prepared, Ella. If they get in here, his voice trailed off, swallowed by a sudden silence that fell over the room like a shroud. Ben, eyes wide with terror, moved closer to James. They'll come for her first, he said breathlessly. It's her they want. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, turning anxious eyes toward Ella. She felt as if the very weight of the room bore down on her chest, a suffocating pressure that made it hard to breathe. What do you mean her? She challenged, panic rising. What do you know? Ben steadied himself against the wall, but his voice trembled. It's not just you. It's your family history. They've been waiting for the right moment. Generations of secrets buried beneath this house, it's all connected. What secrets? Ella quaked, balling her fists. Stop beating around the bush. Suddenly, a heavy thud reverberated from the other side of the door, and Ella felt the vibrations inch up her spine. She glanced at Margaret, whose face had turned ashen. The older woman's eyes flickered with something unrecognizable, fear or perhaps recognition. Ella couldn't tell. James stammered, Ben, tell us what we need to know. Before Ben could say more, the door splintered at the hinges, a determined force pressing against it. James stood tall, a guardian ready to face whatever storm was about to come crashing down. He turned to Ella, his expression fierce yet tender. Whatever happens, we face it together. But just as they braced for the inevitable, the door swung open with a sudden crash, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows. The moment hung thick in the air, a heartbeat stretching into eternity. Get down! James roared, shoving Ella behind him. The figure stumbled in, its silhouette barely visible through the storm of chaos outside. Heart pounding, Ella couldn't help but wonder who, or what was stepping through their threshold. With a raw, rasping voice that sent chills through her, the figure whispered, "I've come to warn you about what?" James demanded, fists clenched, but the answer was buried under a cacophony of screams and panic. "They're not just coming for you," the figure continued, stepping into the light, revealing a familiar face, twisted in desperation and fear. "Who are you?" Ella's voice trembled, recognition dawning in her mind. "It's Alex." She gasped. "But how?" Before she could finish, another loud crash echoed from the back of the house, drawing everyone's attention. The walls began to shake, shadows creeping closer, ready to envelop them. "Run!" Frantic shouts erupted, but Ella felt stuck in time, heart racing as reality shifted around her. The truth crackled in the air, an electric tension binding them together. They were no longer just a family fighting for survival, they were part of a far greater story. Just as the chaos surged, a piercing scream echoed from the depths of the manor, silencing the room. Ella's blood turned cold. "What was that?" she whispered, dread pooling thick in her stomach. As they turned, the lurking shadows seemed to pulse, drawing closer as if they were alive, hungry. What had they stumbled into? What awaited them? And as the darkness loomed, one question remained: would they be ready to uncover the horrors buried deep in their past, or be consumed by it? Ella's heart raced as fear clawed at her throat. "What do you mean, Alex?" she stammered, the reality of his return weighing heavily on her mind. The memories of their childhood together flashed like lightning: laughter, secrets, and the bond they thought unbreakable. Alex's gaze darted around the room, lingering on Margaret. "We don't have time. They're coming for us, and if we don't act fast, it'll be too late." His voice trembled, a raw edge layering every word. James tightened his grip on Ella, every muscle in his body coiled tightly, ready to spring. "What the hell is going on?" he shouted, frustration bubbling over. "They've awakened." Alex paused, swallowing hard. "They've been trapped for centuries, and they're out for blood." "Your blood, Ella. You're the key." The tension in the room spiked, murmurs rippled through the crowd as fear seeped deeper into their bones. "What are you talking about?" Ella's voice rose, mingling with the shifting shadows that whispered like ghosts. "I was sent to protect you." Alex spat, eyes wild with urgency. "But I don't know how much time we have left. You don't know what's buried here." He gestured wildly toward the darkened corners of the room. Another crash resounded through the house, louder this time, splintering the air. A swarm of darkness surged just outside their view like a tide, hungry and relentless. James's expression hardened. He knew there was no buying time, only fighting their way out or succumbing to the darkness. "Everyone, find something," he bellowed. "Look for anything we can use. Now." Chaos erupted. People scrambled, searching every nook and cranny in frenzied desperation. Chairs were overturned, kitchen knives fished out from drawers. Ella's mind struggled to focus. She felt Alex's eyes boring into her. "Ella, listen," he urged as he grabbed her wrists. "You have to remember. Your grandmother always spoke of the blood moon ritual. It's tied to this house." The name struck like a lightning bolt. Ella recalled the old tales her grandmother would share during stormy nights: shadows, whispers, and a pact made to keep something dark at bay. But another scream pierced through the walls, echoing a chilling testament to what awaited them. Ella's stomach twisted. Against all reason, a part of her believed there was truth in Alex's words. "What can we do?" Ben shouted, scrambling behind James as a shadow loomed closer. "What are we supposed to remember?" "There's a basement." Margaret's voice sliced through the panic, bold but shaky. "The old cellar holds the answers. I'm certain." "Cellar? What good is a cellar?" when James grunted as he shoved back against the door, splintering it further. "Ella, we follow her." Alex tightened his hold on her, pulling her toward Margaret. "It's our only chance." But before they could take a step, the pressure against the door exploded, wood flying, and an overwhelming force blasted through. Shadows poured in like a living thing, sucking the light from the room, wrapping around them. Ella felt Ben gravitate closer, breaths shallow and rapid. "This isn't happening," he gasped. James stood firm, glaring into the dark mass now taking shape. "We need to go, now." With resolve, Ella pushed through the fear and reached for her thudding heart. "To the cellar!" she cried, figuring it wasn't just a suggestion but a desperate hunt for salvation. As they turned and fled, she stole one last glance at the monstrous figure forming in the doorway, its eyes glowing like embers of decay. They had to escape, had to run. But she felt it then, a pulse of recognition vibrating within her core. What secrets lay hidden in that cellar? And would they find what they needed to confront the darkness or only uncover deeper horrors? The shadows breathed, begging her to yield, but Ella wouldn't break. Not yet. They raced down the hallway, the scream of the shadows echoed stronger, louder than before. What awaited them at the end of their frantic sprint? Would they unearth the truth, or would something unspeakable stop them dead in their tracks? Ella pounded down the hallway, heart hammering in her chest as they tore toward the basement. The cries of desperation echoed behind them, like a choir of the damned searching for their next victim. Shadows twisted and writhed at the edges of her vision, as if alive, eager to entrap them in their grasp. "Over here!" Margaret shouted, throwing open a door at the end of the corridor. The scent of damp earth and decay rushed out to greet them, mixing with the panic in the air. As they dove into the cellar, Ella felt a chill sweep across her skin, prickling in a way that made her want to scream. The darkness thickened around them like fog, swallowing every ounce of light. "What if it's worse down here?" Ben whispered, glancing back toward the door, dread seeping into his voice. James stepped in front of Ella, brandishing a broken chair leg like a makeshift weapon. "We have to trust Margaret. If this basement holds the answers, we need them. What do you think is waiting for us?" Ella managed to ask, her voice a mere tremor against the weight of fear. Margaret advanced slowly, her fingers brushing along the stone walls. "There's south more to this place than meets the eye. It's all connected." Ella's pulse quickened. She recalled the way her grandmother had spoken about the silence of the earth and the sealing of ancient things. Memories flooded her mind, the way her grandmother had kept a box filled with ochre symbols and old pages. The stories were warnings, but the details had slipped away in the fog of youth. Suddenly, a sharp crash reverberated through the cellar, vibrating the very walls. "They're here!" Alex shouted, his eyes wide with panic. "We don't have much time. The blood moon ritual, you have to remember something that can help us." The shadows seemed to shrink back momentarily, drawn to her, like they were waiting for a cue. Ella's breath stuttered as she fought against the rising terror choking her throat. An image flickered in her mind, her grandmother's voice tangled in the whispers of the past. "You must be willing to stand against the darkness, Ella. Only then will the true power of your blood awaken. Ella. Concentrate." Alex's voice sliced through the chaos. "What did your grandmother tell you about the ritual?" The shadows stirred, sensing her resolve wavering. They drew close, and Ella felt their cold embrace wrapping around her ankles, trying to pull her down into suffocating darkness. I don't remember," she cried, feeling helpless. "You must," shouted James, the weight of desperation heavy in each word. Ella's heartbeat echoed in her ears as memories shuffled through her mind like desperate specters. There was something she murmured. "A circle, we needed to draw a circle and light candles, but I don't focus." Alex urged, his voice sharpened with urgency. "What do you need to summon? To banish them?" The flicker of an idea sparked. "The symbols." The ochre symbols in the box. No sooner had the words left her mouth than the shadows crashed violently against the cellar, reviving their fierce grip. Margaret's eyes widened in terror as the darkness boiled over and twisted into something more grotesque. "We need to act fast. Now." Ella felt a rush of determination swell within her. "We're going to find that box," she declared. "We'll face this together." But as they turned toward the staircase, the shadows coalesced into a solid form, a figure emerging, grotesque and terrifying, just as the closing scene in her childhood nightmares. Its glowing eyes burned through the dark. It wasn't just an abomination, it felt like something connected to Ella, something she had unwittingly unleashed. "Run!" James shouted, pushing Ella forward, but it was too late. The figure spoke, its voice a chilling echo that wrapped around her like chains. "You cannot escape your own blood, Ella. You are mine." As Ella's breath hitched in her throat, dread pooled around her as her mind screamed for clarity. Was this the end, or the beginning of something even darker? With their backs pressed against the stone wall, they had nowhere to go, no escape from the truth that lurked beneath the surface of their heritage. Would they find the strength to fight back, or become part of the shadowy past that sought to consume them whole? As the figure advanced, Ella's pulse quickened. The shadows whispered promises and threats, but she felt the fire of resolve ignite within her. What would she do next, when the line between light and darkness blurred? With a quick jolt, Ella tore her gaze from the monstrous figure, pushing herself away from the wall. "We need to move," she urged the others, but panic thundered through her veins. She could feel their fear echoing back to her, tightening her throat. James raised the chair leg, glaring at the crawling shadows. "I'll hold it off. Just grab what you need." He was shaking, but the urgency gave him a desperate strength. Margaret grabbed Ella's wrist, pulling her backward. "No. We can't let him do that. We need each other." But even as she spoke, Ella could see James's determination. "Go!" he shouted, swinging the makeshift weapon with defiance. The figure lunged, its form shifting, melding from one horrifying shape to another. Saliva dripped from its jagged teeth, glimmering with a darkness of its own, and twisted laughter filled the cellar. Ella clenched her fists until her nails dug into her palms. "We have to find that box. Those symbols, just like Grandma said." She wanted to believe her voice held power, could pierce through the terror, but each word felt heavy, laden with the weight of unknown horrors. Margaret nodded, stealing her breath. "Let us go. Follow me." They dashed through the dim cellar, the shadows clawing at their heels, seeking to entwine them in despair. The air felt electric, thick with dread, yet Ella could almost taste the purpose brewing in her chest. "Ella, right here." Margaret pointed to a staggering heap at the back, a dusty, wooden chest covered in layers of grime. Ella lunged for it, fingers fumbling over the lock. "Help me." The other two rushed to her side, each taking a side of the box. With desperation fueling their actions, they forced it open. Inside lay the ochre symbols, the flickering candles, and stacks of heavily worn parchment. Her heart raced. It was all there, the pieces of her grandmother's mysterious legacy. But before they could catch a moment of reprieve, the figure surged closer. James swung the chair leg again, catching its side, but the creature barely flinched. "It's not working," he yelled, panic making his voice high. "Focus, Ella," Alex urged, shoving a symbol toward her. "What does it mean? What does it do?" Ella stared at the symbols, her breath hitching. "It's a binding, it can contain it, but we need to light the candles first. They amplify the power." She could remember her grandmother's careful, practiced instructions, the way she'd drawn the symbols on the floor while murmuring ancient words now lurking in the fringes of her memory. "Then do it," Margaret shouted, glancing nervously at the advancing threat. Hands trembling, Ella began lighting the candles, fire flickering in the suffocating darkness. Each flame ignited a rush of warmth, combating the icy fingers of the shadows. She could feel a pulse resonating within herself, amplifying with each candle lit. Suddenly, the figure reeled back, as if slightly scorched by the light. "You think flames can hold me?" it snarled, voice dripping with malice. "Don't listen to it," Alex yelled. "Focus on the symbols. You can do this." Ella closed her eyes for a brief moment, the fear now morphing into determination. She pulled the symbols from the box, aligning them on the damp cellar floor. Her grandmother's voice floated back, strong and sure, "You'll wield your blood's power, but it requires faith." As she placed the final symbol, the candles flared, illuminating the darkness with desperate hope. Ella pressed her palms against the ground, grounding herself. "By the power within my blood," she began, her heart racing, "I bind you to this darkness." The figure screeched, a twisted sound of rage and disbelief. The shadows ripped, struggling against the encroaching light. But just as the darkness began to yield, a wave of energy surged from the chest, wrapping around her like a tidal force. "No. You belong to me." It bellowed, its eyes blazing as the shadows encircled Ella's group. Ella's adrenaline surged. "Stand strong," she cried. Together. Would they succumb to the shadows once more, or would they unleash the strength hidden within their bond and heritage? As the battle raged on, something deep within Ella awakened a very primal force she never knew existed, but in the chaos, one question loomed above all: could she really harness that power to save them, or was this merely a pathway leading them deeper into despair? Ella's heart thundered like a drum, each beat echoing in the terrifying void of the cellar. She could feel the electric energy swirling around her, gripping her chest with a powerful tension. The air was thick and hot, charged with uncertainty. The shadows struggled violently against the light, roaring their defiance. "You're only a child." The figure snarled, its features twisting into a grotesque smile that sent a tremor through her body. Ella swallowed hard. "Child or not," she shouted, desperation amplifying the resolve in her voice, "I have my family's strength." James and Margaret stayed at her side, their eyes wide, yet filled with a flicker of hope as the candles glowed brighter. "What do we do next?" James gasped, glancing at the encroaching darkness, which seemed to pulse, hungry for them. "Focus on the symbols," Ella ordered, her voice rising above the turmoil. She glanced over the scattered parchments. Words began to swim into clarity, rituals her grandmother had performed, incantations whispered at twilight. The shadows recoiled slightly as another candle flared, illuminating cryptic symbols etched into the cellar's walls, symbols that sang to her, begging to be awoken. "Help me!" she cried. Together, they dug through the box, pulling out the ancient scrolls and laying them across the floor, their movements frantic as the threat continued to press in. "This one!" Margaret shouted, thrusting a yellowed parchment covered in runes at Ella. "It says something about a binding circle." "Right." Ella took a deep breath, hands shaking, and began to utter the melody of her ancestors, the words fluttering from her lips like fragile wings. "With this line, I bind thee." Her voice rang out, a beacon cutting through the darkness. The shadows writhed, enraged, clawing through the air as if trying to drown her words. It ripped emotionally at Ella, the supernatural weight pressing down, demanding that she succumb to it. "You are weak. You cannot hold me." The figure howled from across the room, the sound jarring her bones. "No." Ella shouted, grounding herself again, feeling the heat of the candles at her back, the warmth tinged with hope. "Do not waver." Alex echoed from beside her, his fear palpable, fueling her will to stand firm. With a final chant, she hammered the energy into her words, her voice rising in crescendo. "With the light of my ancestors, I banish you." The shadows clawed forward, the creature's laughter morphed into an anguished cry, engulfing the cellar in a frenzied blur. The air thickened, pushing against them, as if the very fabric of reality was tearing. Suddenly, a burst of light erupted from the symbols. A radiant edge cut through the murky darkness, illuminating the entire cellar as bright as day. The shadows recoiled in horror, frantic now, and Ella felt the energy crest within her soul. "What is happening?" Margaret screamed, her eyes wide, reflecting terror and awe. "I think it's working." Ella shouted back, her voice threading through the chaos, stronger than before. As the light surged, it shattered the bindings of the darkness but only for a moment. Ella could feel that primal force thrumming through her veins, but with it came an intense wake of exhaustion. The creature writhed, its form bending as the light licked at it. You think you've won? This is your beginning, little girl. Ella struggled, and with a sudden roar, the creature lunged one last time, an unhinged maw ready to swallow them whole. No! Ella screamed, raising her hands. I want to let you take us. The force swelling inside her intensified, and then, without warning, it exploded outward, a shockwave that reverberated through the confines of the cellar. The world dimmed for a fleeting moment, and then the light faltered, flickered, and, just like that, darkness began to retreat. What Ella couldn't see as the chaos unfolded was the swirling essence that connected her to her grandmother and those before her. It surged, alive, and she felt the ancient woman's presence beside her. In that instant, the room around them seemed to fall silent, the shadows pulled back, and just as Ellen hoped for victory, a chilling realization struck: something she had awakened was still lurking, waiting. What would happen next? In her heart, would this newfound power be her salvation, or would it beckon horrors yet unseen? As the darkness pulled away, a palpable silence fell over the cellar, leaving only a faint glow from the flickering candles. Ella felt a rush of exhilaration mingling with sheer terror. Had they won? Or merely delayed the inevitable? James stood by her side, breathing heavily, but the defiance he'd shown moments before flickered in his eyes like the remaining embers of a fire. Is it over? He asked, scanning the shadows for any sign of danger. Beside him, Margaret held her breath, more vulnerable than Ella had ever seen her. Ella didn't answer right away. Instead, she focused on the energy thrumming through her, connecting her to ages past. Her grandmother's sharp, nurturing presence felt like a warm blanket wrapped around her shoulders, reassuring her that she wasn't alone. I think we pushed it back, she said, finding her voice, but then a hiss of air and an unsettling flutter of shadows rushed forward, enveloping them once more. No, Ella breathed, panic creeping into her voice. No, it can't come back. We need to finish this. Draw the circle. Alex yelled, scrambling toward the remains of the scattered parchments. The light from the candles can't hold it forever, we need to trap it. The urgency sharpened Ella's thoughts. She turned to Margaret, whose gaze had hardened, the weight of ancestral knowledge flooding back. What did your family do to keep it contained? Ella implored. Margaret's face tightened. There was a pact. We needed to willingly bind ourselves to the duty to protect the lineage. Her voice faltered, revealing emotions that must have been buried deep within. Then that's what we do. Ella declared, glancing at James and then at Alex. We stand together. We face this as a family. As they formed a circle, the candles' warmth flickered, their flames whirling like beacons of defiance. Ella began to chant, her voice weaving through the darkness. Margaret joined in, her authority bolstering the fragile thread of hope. James placed his hands on Ella's shoulders, firmly grounding her against the weight of despair mounting around them. Together. He encouraged, squeezing her arm. They had to lean into their shared history, the bond of love, struggle, and courage that defined their existence. The air crackled as they finished the incantation, uniting their wills. The shadows shrieked, agitated, retreating with fierceness. Keep going. Alex shouted, his voice rising above the chaos swirling around them. Don't let it break the circle. Ella channeled her fear into power, feeling her roots extend into the very soil of the earth. By the legacy of my blood, she breathed, the energy erupting from her core. We bind you. My ancestors will not let you haunt us any longer. You will be caged, not of your own will, but of ours. The shadows writhed, forming tendrils that lunged toward them, but the chant reverberated, holding them at bay. A brilliant light burst from the center of their circle, illuminating the cellar with a fierce intensity. The creature's grotesque form began to distill into wisps of smoke, fear twisting its features. As light surged, the ancient symbols Ella had bound together ignited, circling with a tempestuous power that cast darkness away. The figure screamed, rage twofold. How could they wield such light against it? "We can!" Margaret shouted, her voice echoing with an authority that pushed back against centuries of fear. "You do not own us." With the last strains of her chant, Ella pushed forward, arms stretched wide. That same energy surged through her, binding the shadows tighter than before. The creature howled, but the unity of their voices sounded clear as they sealed the shadows in a cacophony of radiant defiance. Then, darkness began to fold in on itself, collapsing into a ball of swirling energy before finally snuffing out like a candle. Silence rushed in, heavy and strange, yet intoxicating. They released the breath they hadn't known they were holding. Ella felt a shift within, small, yet undeniable. The warmth of triumph coursed through her, as if her grandmother's wisdom had finally sparked to life. Laughter erupted. It rose like a phoenix, soaring above fear and uncertainty. It was Alex breaking the tension, a wide grin splitting his face. "We did it." But Margaret, still somber, stepped forward, face pale. "We may have bound the darkness, but we are tethered to its aftermath." Ella's heart sank. "What does that mean?" Margaret paused, her features resolute. "It means this is not the end. We need to rebuild. We owe it to ourselves, to the ones lost." The history of their lineage echoed through her words, and Ella understood then their fight was far from over. As they stood in the dimly lit cellar, a shift swept through them. They weren't just survivors, they were the bearers of history now, destined to reshape the future. In that moment, they realized something powerful: they had each other, and together, they could face whatever came next. "I'm with you," Ella said, her heart warmed by the connection to those also fighting against shadows, both inside and out. There was no going back. They would confront their legacy, face the fears of the past, and build a new future together. The circle they formed didn't just signify power, it marked a profound change in their fates. One where courage and unity triumphed over despair. Together, they stepped into the light of a new dawn, fortified by their shared resolution and blood that bound them through the ages. And in the distance, the worries of tomorrow became a whisper. From that moment forward, they would choose how their story would unfold. Please, listen closely. I need you to subscribe immediately to the channel. You need to be part of our journey, and you don't want to miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now, feed the algorithm, and help this community grow. Flood the comments below with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters here. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions. Let us keep this momentum going.